Okay. Hi, everyone. We're so excited to be on here with the Above Board audience on Substack. It's really exciting. I am Caitlin David. I'm a fractional marketing leader and also member of the board. I generally work with founder-led businesses, helping them reconnect to their vision and simplify their marketing strategies. And I am joined with Jen today, who I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thanks, Caitlin. It's exciting to be here with Above Board. And I'm Jen Shaw, and I'm a creative leadership coach. I work primarily with senior leaders in the fashion and beauty industry and their creative teams. I'm also a fractional product advisor with larger brands who are looking to streamline how things are going inside.
Awesome. So excited to have this conversation with you today. And it's one that I've been having a lot kind of behind closed doors, and I'm excited to just talk about it with a larger group. And it's something that I think a lot of brands experience. I feel like there's so much news around building brands and new brands and how to start a brand, but there's not a lot. And then you see the aftermath, right? Like when someone's really made it and they're in the news. But there's not a lot about the brands that are scaling and it's kind of in the in between. And that's when you can tend to lose yourself in your brand. Maybe your brand identity drifts. Your teams are scaling, but maybe that also means some gaps are being created between the vision and the execution. And so I'm excited to dive a little bit more into this today because I think it's a really important topic in order for brands to really make it to that next stage of business because perhaps they've evolved and the brand architecture that they've begun with, or even their mission, maybe that's evolved too. And we're not always revisiting it.
It's such a good point. And I think where many brands who are past that initial stage and before they get to the massive stage, they there's a perception that a brand identity is a static thing, right? That it
Mm.
should we should always stay true to our core and we should always stay in one place and be one thing. And brands are living, breathing things that grow as their teams grow, as their audience grows. But there's an interesting intersection in there when they do start to step a little bit further past where they started and where they want to go, and where does the brand creep start to come in? Right?
Totally,
Where
totally.
does the okay, we're growing now, let's be everything to everyone, and they become the I've referred to it before as like the brand octopus, right? You've got one
Mhm.
tentacle grabbing for this thing, another one grabbing for this thing. And where's that intersection of where we check it and check back in with where we are and where do we want to go?
Yeah, it's like often we build out this mission, these core values, where we're headed, these goals, a positioning statement, and then it just kind of sits on a shelf, right? And it's
Yeah.
collecting dust. But really it's something that should be revisited often, at least once a year, if not more. And I think what happens is the founder or CEO that's leading the company is feeling almost maybe like this isolation where they're starting to be removed from the day to day and maybe they feel even untethered from their vision. But then you have this team where there's a lot of pressure on them because they are being asked to constantly keep up with the trends and chase the next thing because it's like, oh, this is what our audience wants. This is what the market wants. This is what is happening culturally. So we have to latch onto it. And no one is really spending time. And I don't think that this is a fault of anyone. I think it's just kind of the nature of the beast, right? No one's spending time going back to the core to say, well, is this really for us? And I know that you have a perspective from an internal standpoint, being on creative teams, of how that's affected the team. And I'd love to hear that story from you as well, because I think that it's hard on both parties, but you're not necessarily talking about it.
First, yeah, that yes, the I think we're not talking about it, and brands should be talking about it. There is that disconnect from uh, sometimes the founder and the teams, right? Where
Mhm.
are we going with this? And the team is expected, as you said, to go find the new thing and stay connected to the core. But we're not, for me, when that conversation stopped about like, here's where we're coming from and here's where we're going, we were all just floating in there, right? And we were trying to figure it out. Having those conversations is such a grounding point for the teams because you stay rooted in the brand's core mission, but it finally gives the team and the leaders on the teams and the senior teams to check in with where we were and maybe explore where we need to go. You start to test the elasticity of the brand guidelines, but
Mhm.
simply not having that conversation, I think sets up the creative teams for a bit of an identity crisis. Who
Mm.
were we? Where are we going? And as for me as a creative, I've seen that several times in my career. It's a challenge to like reorient yourself in that. So your point about we're not having those conversations is such a good one because we need to be. And when I was in a brand where we were able to have that conversation, it changed everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think that it's not always discussed because a lot of times we're just looking at the bottom line.
Mhm.
But it's very similar to like a personal growth journey, right? Where you're 10 years down the road and you're looking back and you're thinking, how did I get here? So much has happened, but how did I get here? And if we're not taking inventory often, we can really get away from our core values and our mission, and also from a brand perspective, who we're serving. And I remember when we were discussing this offline, you had said something about like, could you imagine walking around in a shoe that doesn't fit? And I
Mhm.
love that analogy so much because when you are leading a marketing strategy or a creative process that doesn't actually fit who you are, it's very similar. And oftentimes I hear from founders, I don't know what it is. I can't quite put my finger on it, but something's not landing. My messaging feels fuzzy. Our marketing strategies all over the place. Like we don't have a consistent voice, or we're just throwing things against the wall to see what sticks. And the flip side to that is what you just described. Well, your team is feeling it too. They don't have
That's right.
guardrails. They don't have that direction, or they do have the guardrails, but they're like, I thought we were going this way and now we're going this way. Like, how can I be successful in my role if I'm constantly being asked to switch lanes, right? So, we talked about this idea of building internally first and how really you want this community of raving fans, right? Like that's every brand's dream. But how that really needs to start internally first and how your creative team are your biggest fans and should be. And so I'd love to kind of switch gears and talk about how brands, if they're feeling this, can get back to that place of how they can build this community of raving fans from the inside out.
Yeah, yeah. And it really does start with your creative teams, whether it's the product team or whether it's the marketing team or the sales team, the merchandising team. It's anybody who's telling a story. And it feels like it's so important to go back and have that. Here's where we started. Here's what this brand meant to us when we started. This is what this brand meant to our consumers when we started. This is what the brand meant to us when we all joined. And we're growing.
Hmm.
I think that this spending time, like pressing pause, spending time to reorient everybody is critical. It's like a must have. It stops the spin, it gets everybody back in the same path. And while the path might not be straight, we don't really want to be slingshotting people back and forth from we're this, no, we're this, no, we're this. So I think just opening space to create that is a really important activity to do internally with your teams, especially the creative ones.
Yeah, having
And
that
I would
open
add,
dialogue.
mm-hmm. Um, I think there's another component here is that as creatives, and I'm sure you've experienced this too, we start to adopt some of that brand identity into our
Hmm.
creative process. It's so important for the creative team as they adopt that to be able to learn and grow with the brand because the creatives are learning and growing. If you want them to be your biggest fans, and that is the biggest asset you can have in a brand, you've got to constantly like look at the growth process. Where are they going and where do they need a little bit more? Where do they need a little bit less? The other thing I'll add to that is every brand plateaus for a while, right?
Yeah.
They kind of need to stay the same for a little bit so their consumers and customers can catch up to them. If they're chronically changing, you're going to lose people. So in those plateau periods, it's a really good time to check in with the creative teams, the sales teams, any team that's out there talking about the brand.
And also just knowing that it's okay to not only be there in that plateau, but to do this work. And if you've outgrown your brand identity, that's okay. If you've gotten away from the brand identity, that's okay too. But just having that awareness and pressing pause and doing that work, that intentional work is so important. And then I think what happens is it's not like you have to just stay in a vacuum, right? And never change because we're all evolving and your audience is evolving
Yeah.
as well. But you want to evolve intentionally. And what I find is so beautiful about this is you can kind of just like let your shoulders down and breathe a little bit easier because when you start to see the next marketing tactic or the social media algorithm change, you don't feel like you have to chase it. Like imagine a world where you're so clear on what you do and who you're helping and how you show up that when a moment like that happens, you can decide whether or not you want to be a part of it or how you should be a part of it and be really intentional about even how you cling to some like cultural moments as well, right? And I always like to bring up the Taylor Swift example because everyone knows it. When she came out with her new album, every single brand was turning their social media feed like orange sparkles and
Oh,
turquoise.
yeah.
And it
Oh,
was
yeah.
really
The big
cool to
orange.
see. Yeah. It was a testament to her, really, and what she's built. And it was so awesome to see. But some brands, it was just felt a little off. It's like, why is the Lysol cleaner, for example, turning, attaching themselves to Taylor Swift? And maybe that was a fun moment and maybe it
Yeah.
worked for them. I don't know. But there was definitely brands that were doing it just to be a part of the cultural moment and to be able to sit back and say, wow, this is really cool what's happening. We can take some learnings from this, but we don't have to be in the moment with everyone else in this sea of sameness. And I think that's actually how you end up standing out.
For sure, for sure. And again, that's part of the importance of having these conversations and these moments where you can press pause to reflect with the team because maybe the orange trend is one you want to bypass. You don't need to react to every single trend that's coming your way.
Yes, totally. And something that's really interesting, I just saw the other day, my husband actually sent it to me, was Coors Light. I don't know if you saw this, but they just had this crazy marketing campaign happen with MLB in baseball. And one of the players, I don't know what team, I'm not an expert on baseball, but a big player hit a home run and hit the Coors Light like banner that was in like the ad, and it actually hit one of like the screens out because it was digital screen, so it looked like a black box hit out in their like logo. And what was cool about that moment was the team acted so quickly because they do know their identity and they do know their audience so well that they turned it into their own cultural marketing moment. And within like 48 hours, they came out with a new can that had the little square out on it and like changed all of the banners in all the stadiums, and they had a really great tagline with it. And so that, like, you're able to do that stuff and you're allow your creative teams to really truly be creative and do something outside of the box when you know yourself. And all of those people that work there, they probably are the raving fans. And we're so excited about this.
Oh, yeah. And it's also in this world where everything is accelerating so fast and everything is so perfect. It is such a human moment to capture, right? This thing
Totally.
went off the rails, this accident happened, it knocked out the box, and we're going to just capture the very humanity of this moment. And that is awesome.
Yeah. So I think that, when you leave yourself room for unexpected moments, that's when the magic can really happen, not only for your business, but for your team, which is so critical. And often when we think about marketing and branding and growth of our business, we're not always thinking about our team first, but that culture is so important.
Yeah. For sure. Because imagine this course example is such a great one because the internal team had to love that moment, right? And they had to
Mhm.
have a bit of tongue in cheek, a bit of humor, a bit of, wow, this is awesome. We see an opportunity here. And they also had to have the freedom to capitalize on that opportunity. So what does that say about the culture of that company? Really good
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, really good things. Yes, really cool. So,
Yeah.
if you're listening today, number one, we would love to hear your questions, your feedback, your comments. Is this resonating with you? Please drop them below, and we'd love to have that dialogue with you. But also, it might be a good time to press pause and ask yourself those questions. What stage is my business in? Am I in that plateau? Do I feel like our brand identity has drifted a bit? Is there tension with our team? And it's okay if the answer is yes. This is really an opportunity for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a very normal place to be. Let's like allow space for
Yeah.
that to be like that's part of this process. That's part of growing.
Yes. Let's normalize this for everyone.
Let's normalize it. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, this
Awesome.
was awesome. I really enjoyed the conversation, and we hope that you all did too. So we'd love to hear your feedback for sure.
Yes. Yes. Caitlin, thank you so much. This was awesome.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Oh, okay.